Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, it's Regit and welcome to the Battle Cats Beginner's Guide. Once again, if you're watching chronologically, my apologies, it's been ages since the last episode, but there is a very good reason for that. What I'm trying to achieve here and what needs to be achieved as we move forward into the later part of the beginning game is 1600 user rank. It's particularly important because this is a user rank that allows you to gain special cats to level 30, and then from that you'll be able to have a bahamut that's strong enough to beat the next crazed level that we're going to go on to, crazed fish. So as difficult as it is, it's necessary, and probably from the length of this you will see that it definitely is a difficult process. As well as seeing lots of upgrading, I'll be taking you through any new units that I get for their possible uses, for if you might have got them yourself, and also how to farm certain XP stages, those being the last couple of the weekend / blitz XP stages, in order to maximise the amount of XP that you can get whilst you're farming for XP. Other good ways of getting XP are Stories of Legend stages, and if you haven't got all your superior treasure yet, which you really need to have got, farming treasure on story mode will eventually get you XP, just like doing any level will onwards. Perhaps this is a little unfair to use as an example because I've never seen this before, but if it ever happens again and you ever get the opportunity to, make sure to buy the rest of your special cats when there is a deal on. So the ones that you don't necessarily need at the start might do you well to get at half price when you can. As I've said, I've never seen this before, but if you ever see an opportunity like this, grab it with as many arms as you possibly have, because although a lot of the special cats you might get won't be that great, for example, Bondage Cat, because you got them at half price, you've got it at nice value. So at the moment, it's incredibly important to just get the user rank up in any way that I possibly can. So I'm going to try and simulate what a lot of people will have done by this point on a normal account, and that's open some gacha. It doesn't particularly matter what set is here. If we get any Ubers from it, I shan't be using them, but perhaps upgrading them just to get my user rank up, because ultimately we need to achieve 1600, and upgrading units is how you increase your user rank. So I'm going to use this starter special, which comes about occasionally, gives you half off the cat food cost, which is very good if you're running low on it, or just good generally because you're saving yourself 750 of them. So let's see what we get out of this. Hopefully lots of new units so that we can make 30 user rank out of each of them. Well, that's a super rare I'm not actually familiar with at all, but fair enough, good. Anyway, so this one is Shaman Cat. This has been another of those good ones for like the Red Cyclone, things like that. Pogo Cat can be a very good meat shield, end up being Jiangxi in its true form. Weightlifter Cat, good against black enemies. I can do another roll and get a million XP bonus, which to a high level account probably isn't very useful, but actually at this stage, if you got that much cat food stockpiled, it's going to be useful to have that XP to upgrade your units. A Nerd Cat, oh, this is an incredibly good unit. Stands at a huge range, outranging almost everything. What I really should have done in the Chapter 3 Moon Guide was explain that Mother Cat is only a substitute for Salon or Paris Cat if you don't have it. For goodness sake, if you have Paris Cat, use that. It is shed loads better, but is a gacha unit. Gardener, here's another new one. This is an anti-zombie cat. If you're struggling on outbreaks, that will be good for you. Swordsman Cat, an anti-red cat. I guess if you're struggling with reds that are alright with you having close-up combat. This is an anti-floating Uber called Megadora. It gets double monies when it defeats enemies, which can be useful for some battle beginnings when you don't get much time to build up your worker cat. I certainly wouldn't be lying to tell you that this upgrading business takes a heck of a lot of XP, so what I've done is got myself into an XP stage. These are the ones that appear in the event stages now and then, as opposed to the weekend stage, which is structured in exactly the same way, but you can be sure will appear at the weekends. These are what are called blitz stages and appear for an hour at a time at certain times that can be referenced using the little calendar that you get within the menus of the game. In any case, doing this will get you on average a lot more XP than most levels because they are specifically designed for this purpose. I'm sure we've gone over them before and they are as ever useful, and actually even at this stage of the game, you can get quite far through them. So I'm an XP veteran. That's as far as I've got on the XP stage, because you have to start that over. Doesn't matter what your progress is on the weekend stage. And I've brought an XP up with me, so it'll be interesting to see once we complete this level how much XP that's going to grant us. Because thing is, now at this point I've got all my superior treasure, as everyone should be aiming for, in my Into the Future chapters, so there's no point really doing any more farming there. I'm working through a bit of the Stories of Legend, which is a useful thing to do for XP. You can still get plenty of XP on the levels within there. But ultimately, while an XP stage is around, it's useful to do it because actually, although we probably haven't gone over them in any kind of depth, XP stages are often a requirement to be able to complete catnip challenges. Also in the sort of main menus, you'll find them. And if you complete all of them within a week, you'll be granted 30 cat food, which always helps towards your total for getting yourselves some guaranteed rolls and the like. Often when you come across a difficult enemy like this, getting something ranged like a dragon that can do a lot of damage to a single target and meat shielding in front of it is quite a good bet for dealing with it. Isn't always going to be the best thing to do, and often if you've got a specific unit against a certain trait, it'd be better to use that. But a dragon often is a solution to those kinds of problems. With our XP up, we got 201,000 XP. Ultimately, with user rank upgrading, it's always most important to be prioritising the cheapest upgrades first and just going across all your units instead of upgrading one all the way at one time. So that so far has reached us to 1,251 user rank. It certainly is a slow process, but I do have enough cat food to try once more. Now, here's a little bit helpful advice. You see yourself an Uber Fest or an Epic Fest, don't guarantee you an Uber in the 11 roll because they've got an increased Uber rate. So this is the perfect time to be using your rare tickets because you can never guarantee an Uber from rare tickets, but you can increase the chance to get one from an Uber Fest or Epic Fest. Voltacat, this one for example, is a very good anti-zombie unit should you be onto any of them. This is Applecat, when upgraded to its true form, a very good anti-red unit. Bathtub Cat, another very good anti-red one that is basically like a dragon cat, but for reds. If you're ever struggling with a particularly strong one horn or such, meat shield in front of a bathtub cat and have it do loads of damage to the one horn or whatever from behind, you can usually deal with them fairly quickly. It's also useful to note that using your tickets is especially useful when there's also an event to get a lucky ticket from each ticket that you use, which is what is occurring at the moment. So through our roll that we did, we were granted 11 lucky capsules, and that puts us up to 33 in total, and using them for every unit we get out of that is also +1 level. Also vaguely useful at this point in the game and becomes very unuseful later on is the little XP rewards you can get from lucky tickets. When you're doing your upgrading, 30,000 does contribute towards one upgrade, though not great value for a lucky ticket. It is going to help towards that process. But then again, later in the game, not so much when upgrades cost over 1 million XP. This is our complete mess of units, and although ordinarily I would click a use all, I'm not doing that in this beginner account so that I can keep my levels as low as possible while still being able to do certain levels. So I'm just going to unlock these on a specific basis. So through that we managed to get ourselves the 2 remaining little cats that we haven't got yet, meaning that we have a full arsenal of them. Still not particularly useful in almost any circumstance other than increasing our user rank because of its beautifully cheap upgrade cost. Even to level 10, which is going to be about the second most expensive upgrade of all of them, only cost 23,000, which is a tiny amount compared to a lot of other upgrades. So I'm going to go into some of these special cats and make sure to upgrade them because, like a lot of special cats, these have fantastically cheap upgrade costs. So that has left us with 1,355 user rank. This is Sweet XP Expert, the second last stage in the XP stages, be that the Blitz stage or the Weekend stage. This one currently here is the Blitz stage, and the expert stage of this is modelled around Empire of Cats Chapter 2 Moon, in that there is a variation of Dark Emperor Nyandam within it, a black enemy variation of it, and the level follows much the same kinds of qualities. Now, if you remember how Dark Emperor Nyandam attacks, he draws up loads of power and then goes bleh over all your units and probably kills off most of them. So it's a sort of walk up to him, die, walk up to him, chip off damage sort of thing that takes quite a long time. So I'd recommend bringing with you a cat CPU and then shaping your slot around that. And to be able to shape your slot best around a CPU is to bring some units that aren't too expensive and don't have recharge times that are too quick. Otherwise, your CPU will run out of money. Now, this is what I'm going to bring to the level, and you may note immediately that there is a slot missing within this, and that's because I don't need to use it. Any other units that I have are gacha units, so I don't want to use them at the moment, so this can be most applicable to everyone. And if you're using a CPU, leaving a slot open is a sensible thing to do sometimes, because whatever units you may have left might sort of ruin the flow of the CPU. So I've got as many meat shields as I have, quite important in a stage like this. Then cooldown cat, which has a small chance to freeze black enemies, so if it manages to freeze this Dark Emperor Nyandam variant, we're in the money and doing fairly well. Then I have Dragon Cat, fairly long recharge time, Mythical Titan Cat, which is fairly strong-willed and can walk forward past a lot of stuff that other units can't, and then Valkyrie and Bahamut as I usually bring along, just to stem the flow of black and other types of enemies that appear. At the start of the battle, you'll just want to let these first few enemies come towards you, because this is your opportunity, as with quite a few levels at the beginning of the game, to get your worker cat up to a max level. To deal with things like a Dark Doge, I'd recommend just meat shielding with a dragon behind, as previously discussed. That's usually the best way to deal with these one at a time sort of difficult enemies. Alternatively, Mythical Titan can be fairly good at withstanding hits from these sort of enemies. And don't worry if they get a few hits on your base, not too much to worry about. Once you're in a position where you're looking like you're doing fine, sort of save off with your meat shields and don't spam as many of them, because you want to be keeping the enemies roughly where they are. But when you see more like this, obviously you might want to bring about more units, possibly a Valkyrie cat. Until you've got your worker cat to max, you want to stay exactly where you are, at your base. Once you're at level 8 worker cat, you'll want to wait a little bit to make sure that you have plenty of monies in reserve, and then after that you can turn on your CPU and begin the fun. Here's the enemy here, the Dark Emperor Nyandam variant called Director Kurosawa. There'll be a wave of stuff that comes out in front of him at the start, which is why it would be important to have your CPU beginning the battle by bringing out loads of units, so you have a nice protective load of cats and your Bahamut to do a load of splash damage to get rid of all of them. Then after that, this is where the CPU really comes into its own, and that is in just putting out a steady flow of units for a battle that would ordinarily take a really long time, because it's just back and forth. So once you got your CPU like this, there are going to be enough enemies for it to replenish its monies, and so you can literally leave it alone until it has beaten the level for you. And there we go, that was quite a swift victory compared to doing it normally, and it gives you 256,000 XP as a standard, at least where my treasures and plus levels are at the moment. So, that's Sweet XP Expert done, but worry ye not, because there's even more that you can do, even at this stage of the game. Now, this is quite an important issue to address. Since an episode of the guide talking about energy, there has been a little reforming to the energy system itself, and I thought I'd go through that here. There's a pinned comment on the video itself, but if you're watching the video chronologically and you're not aware of this change, hereforth is the change. So originally, what you'd have to do if you wanted to get your energy refilled tactically when you wanted it to, would be to leave stages when you'd almost just about done them, like I've been doing for all of these Stories of Legend stages here. But now what's happened is you can go into them and beat them whenever you like, and whenever you have beaten them, instead of your energy being refilled there and then, which is why you need to use it tactically ordinarily, you're now given an item called leadership, which is the little icon next to the energy there, and that shows that I got one of them. So I'm going to complete this subchapter by finishing Tapas Desert, and you'll see the new interface behind it. So here we are about to complete the stage, and ordinarily when this would be done, a little banner would come up to say 30 cat food and energy fully recovered. So you'd have your energy fully recovered there and then, and you couldn't really do anything about that, which is why you'd have to use that stage at the time where you wanted an energy refill, otherwise your energy would have gone to waste. But now that's different. We get 30 cat food and 1 leadership, and what the leadership allows us to do is use this to recover our energy whenever we want to. So now you have that in storage essentially, and whenever you need the energy to do something like an XP stage, for example, or a stage where you need to get an item desperately and there's not much time left, you can stock these up, which I highly recommend, and then use them when the time comes to need to use them. So now with this new system, you can go forward and work on completing as many stages as you possibly can. Although the final stage is called Sweet XP Insane, we've already done an insane stage, and it actually isn't really that difficult. The difficulty of this stage is sort of on par with Moon of Empire of Cats Chapter 3, because essentially you have a bun bun in it. The difference is that this bun bun is a black bun bun, which along with its enemies makes it more difficult in some respects of its attack. But it being black also means that you have another trait that you can have more units that will be good against it. For example, if you had a unit that knocked back black enemies, wouldn't have been useful against normal Bun Bun, but will now be useful against this one. Check your filter for anything that is anti-floating or anti-black and put that into your slot. The creation that I've made here, as no gacha as possible, is very much similar to what we had for Moon Chapter 3, but with a few differences. Now I've put in the gacha anti-floating unit Necromancer Cat to be able to keep Bun Bun stuck where it is. Another rare unit called Magica Cat that can weaken enemies, and then also Plain Cat, which can knock back black enemies. Now the thing with these are all interchangeable with anything else that is good against floating or black enemies. You can put things like your Sexy Legs Cat in there, more meat shields if you have them, but probably by this point you will have units that are either anti-floating or anti-black. Now, the way I've structured this additionally is to be able to facilitate using a cat CPU, because like the Moon, this is going to be useful to have a cat CPU on as well, so it can spam those 4 meat shields as efficiently as possible and leaving most of the work to not have to be done by you. You don't need to bring a rich cat for this stage, because the start is something you can control fairly easily yourself. It might be useful to bring an XP up because it is an XP stage and that's going to have the greatest benefit in a stage like this. And then also probably of benefit to bring a sniper cat, because at least with where I am, I'm wanting to keep the knockback up. If you've got something that freezes black enemies or floating enemies, don't bring the sniper, because that's going to take the enemy out of freeze and sort of negate what you're trying to do with it. But I'm going to bring these 3 items here and Treasure Radar, and what that will do is give me the best additional XP reward that the level can give me. That's why you bring that into this stage. I'm now going to use an aforementioned leadership to get my energy back, and now we can give Sweet XP Insane a go. So at the start of the battle, you'll want to turn your CPU off and then just use some meat shielding, because there will be a Dark Doge that comes along fairly soon. Here. For the Dark Doge, the best sort of thing you'll want to use is a nice single shot like Dragon, and then a Dark Gory will come along, which will require a little bit more. Maybe some anti-black units, things that can knock them back are usually fairly good for this cause. And as long as you have a few knockbackers and then a few meat shields, you'll just want to stay like that, because then you'll be able to keep yourself at the start of the battle instead of progressing through it a little bit more quickly than you'd like to. All the time you want to be upgrading your worker cat as far as you can, and just trying to make sure that your level of cats are enough to keep the enemies at bay, but not so many that you move forward to start destroying their base, because that's certainly not what you want to be doing quite yet. When you've got your worker cat to max, you'll want to start working towards a point where you have enough monies to let the CPU take on the rest of the battle for you, because at this point you'll just want as many units out as possible, and the CPU is going to be best served to do that. So while you're fighting these such units, if it's possible, try and stack things like dragons, and when you've got plenty of monies, it's going to be time to start putting on the CPU and letting it fight with all it can. It's important you have enough resources, because once it puts out the expensive units, you don't want it to be ignoring your meat shields. Now this element of the battle is somewhat luck. If your bahamut manages to get a shot in like that, you're going to have a much better chance than if it doesn't. The first time I recorded this section, it didn't work out, and so I had to try it again. So please do bear that in mind. It might take multiple tries, but as it's not a no continue stage, you are able to try as many times as you like, as long as you haven't lost the battle entirely. And you can certainly see the merit of the CPU here, because it is a computer. It will spam every unit as soon as mathematically possible within the constraints of time. We try and do that as players, but don't find it as easy to do it on the right millisecond, because if you do it a little bit too early, you're going to be hugely compromised by not actually getting the unit out. And it's pretty taxing to be putting out 4 meat shields and whatever else units all the time. So CPU in places like these, very useful indeed. Also, because of the amount of enemies that are around, your CPU will almost never be lacking for monies after the first spamming of your units. So again, very useful here indeed. And the final wave that's about to come out here is the Black Bun Bun. Moves fast, attacks fast, but is also double traded, and so doubly as vulnerable to any units that you might have. This is where having something anti-black or anti-floating is really going to come in handy. My Magica Cat, quite a general attacker, has weakened the Bun Bun, making it less impactful on my army. My Plain Cats are doing a great job of knocking it back, and the Necromancers, which aren't really getting much of an opportunity to go in, but you can see briefly there, are freezing the Bun Bun. And you can probably get away with succeeding in this if you don't have as many of these units as I did. Probably 2 would be fine, or 1 strong one. Just look in your filter for whatever you might have. And there we go, there's the Bun Bun beaten, and that is the end of this stage. Once you've cleared out the rest of these enemies here and destroyed the rest of the base health, that will be it over, giving you a leadership on the first completion of it, 30 cat food on the first completion of it, and with this treasure radar and XP up, 521,000 XP plus 100,000, the best reward. That's what the treasure radar is getting us in addition. So very helpful for upgrading your units, and an important stage to keep doing now that you're able to do it at this stage of the game. So here I return once again to the upgrade menu, and what I'm going to be trying to do here is get to that magical figure that we need to achieve, 1600 user rank, in order to unlock features we really need in order to progress further in the game. Now the very lowest level I've got any of my special cats now is level 3, and I'm going to be upgrading them in little blocks so they each have the same minimum level. Reason being that the lower the level, the cheaper the upgrade cost, and the cheaper the upgrade cost, the more upgrades you can do with the XP you have, and that's just best for achieving user rank because it makes your XP go further. So I'm going to upgrade these in blocks to level 7 each, and then I will report back and do another block of upgrading. We're now going to get them to level 10, and then after that, as you can see, it gets considerably cheaper. And here I'm going to try and get them to the max level, level 20, and hopefully my XP will stretch far enough, and if we're lucky, we'll be able to move on and upgrade some stuff outside of special cats. 19 and 20 leaves us with 122,000 XP. I've been leaving off briefly this unit here, Happy 100, because it's a lot more expensive than most special cats, because it's essentially a rare cat equivalent in terms of upgrade cost, and so upgrading it to level 16 and using up all the last of our XP awards us with a user rank of 1,559. We are almost there. As I am so currently in need of the final few user ranks, I'm going to use these units in storage here. But don't worry, this won't really affect how applicable any army is to your armies, because I'm going to mainly be using no gacha units, and definitely not my little units. So what I'm going to do is exchange the units that would benefit from this, such as Gross Cat and a Razor Cat, for XP, so that it doesn't add a plus level. By the way, never do this yourself. This is for guide purposes only, and I'm going to use everything else to add to my user rank so I can show you the importance of this user rank. In case I haven't touched on this before, and if I have, an important reminder, if you've got a maxed out utility like we do here, cat-based defense, trade these in, and if you trade in 5, you can get yourself 1 rare cat ticket, which is obviously really going to help you in terms of getting those gacha units. Oh! And by some absolute marvel of just-in-time perfection, before I have to stop recording, I've just about managed to get enough XP and enough upgrades to make 1600 user rank, and so allow me to show you what we get as a result of that. Special cats may be upgraded to level 30 using XP. So now that we can do this, we can upgrade our bahamut to the level that is required, level 30, and I'll be doing that in the next episode when we fight the crazed fish. And so I would recommend, before you move on to your 3rd crazed cat, to have achieved 1600 user rank, which would be easier for you because you'll be doing rolls when you have the 1500 cat food or 750 if it's a starter special to do guaranteed rolls and upgrading units when you can. But make sure you've reached that amount. Have a level 30 Valkyrie cat and Bahamut cat, both special legend units. And that will equip you perfectly well for the next part of this guide. Because believe me, I've tried to do this without a level 30 Bahamut, and it is impossible as it stands. So make sure that you have the level 30 legends, and that will equip us well for moving on. And so I hope this episode, as well as telling you where you need to be for that, has equipped you with some good strategies for farming XP and reminded you the new facets of the energy system and just how best to farm within the game, because it's always important to remember that. In any case, I shall see you hopefully in the next episode, and I hope you have enjoyed this one. I bid you goodbye, and I hope you enjoyed.